In honor of tonight's WWE Bad Blood Premium Live event, let's take a look at the inaugural Bad Blood event, specifically the main event that featured Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker in the first ever Hell in a Cell matchup. What's going on, pro wrestling fans? My name is Jose Ramos Jr. Before we begin the review, make sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all the pro wrestling content like the J Area podcast or the post-show reactions that I submit after every major show. And with that being said, let's jump right into the review. You see, pro wrestling is a never-ending story. There is no off-season. There's no break in between. So I thought what a great opportunity it would be to discuss the history, talk about some of the major moments in professional wrestling, and what more of a topical topic would it be than the Hell in a Cell match. We know that Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk will do battle in the latest matchup in that stipulation's history, but let's wind the clock back all the way to October 5th, 1997. St. Louis, Missouri, in your house, Bad Blood. Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker are going to do battle for the very first time inside the Hell in a Cell structure. Let's first look at our competitors and look at the years that they had behind them. Shawn Michaels was the WWF champion following WrestleMania 12 and ultimately lost that title at that year's Survivor Series against Sid. Now, he would regain the title at the Royal Rumble event that was held in his hometown of San Antonio, Texas, but following an injury to his knee, he had to vacate said title and would take some time away. Obviously, he would return during the summer of 1997, but with a new attitude. You see, this was around the time that the WWF was getting its butt whooped by WCW, so they wanted to inject a little bit of attitude into its programming, and Shawn Michaels was one of the main figures that spearheaded this new movement. It would lead to a brash, new, arrogant style in his character, and even led to the formation of D-Generation X with one of the greatest of all time, Triple H, as well as Chyna and Rick Rude by their side. Now, during the summer of 97, it's also important to remember that when Shawn Michaels had vacated that title, it was up for grabs. And Bret Hart would win the title, drop it to Psycho Sid, and then Psycho Sid would drop the title at WrestleMania 13 to The Undertaker. And The Undertaker would go on to have a title reign until he would lose the title at SummerSlam 1997. The match in question, it was against Bret Hart, but one added stipulation was that Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee. You see, and it's not a secret that Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart had beef. It was well known, it was well documented that in and out of the ring, these two had a level of hate like no other. In fact, I referenced it in one of my videos where I talk about my favorite rivalries of all time. Be sure to check out that video. But in terms of the story ahead of us, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels had so much hate for one another that there was a moment where Bret Hart wanted to use a chair, but Shawn Michaels takes it away. And after Bret Hart spits in the face of Shawn Michaels, he takes one great swing like he's Aaron Judge on the New York Yankees, except Bret Hart ducks this attack and Shawn Michaels whacks The Undertaker in the face with the steel chair. Now Bret Hart, of course, is going to take advantage of that, covers The Undertaker for the pin, and Shawn Michaels is forced to count 1, 2, 3, and awards the WWE title to Bret the Hitman Hart, his biggest nemesis at that time, and screwing The Undertaker in the process. Now, obviously, he would not be a fan of that, and in fact, him and Shawn Michaels, they would have a match at Ground Zero to crown the new number one contender for Bret Hart's WWF title. Now, that matchup would end in a double disqualification, setting the stage for a rematch. And what better match to do than to have one that surrounded the ring, preventing any interference, preventing any disqualification, and a winner would be named definitively. So the stage is set in your house, October 5th, 1997. It's the first time we have the Hell in a Cell structure presented with two of the greatest of all time in Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. Now, this matchup itself, for me, is the definitive best match for a Hell in a Cell in its history. That could be debated depending on what match is your favorite, but it's mine. It's my YouTube channel, so that's just my thought. But the story of the matchup really revolves around Shawn Michaels evading The Undertaker's attack. Obviously, he has a size advantage over the Heartbreak Kid, but one key factor in this matchup is the cameraman. You see, Shawn Michaels, throughout the match, had so much frustration that he could not keep The Undertaker down, and feeling that the cameraman was in his way multiple times throughout the match, you could see Shawn pushing, shoving, just getting him out of the way. Until finally, the cameraman is attacked by Shawn Michaels, of course, not intentionally, until finally Shawn Michaels gives in and gives him a good old beatdown. But that leads the opportunity for the officials to open the door in hopes of getting the cameraman out. But in doing so, it provides an escape for Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels gets out of the ring, to which leads to, I think, one of the greatest sequences in Hell in a Cell history. You see, there's a spot where Shawn Michaels is catapulted into the cell structure. He is then driven face first into the cell structure, leading to some color being presented in the matchup. And of course, he climbs the structure to get away from The Undertaker, but The Undertaker follows right behind him. And then, of course, we all know the classic spot where Shawn Michaels is trying to climb down the Hell in a Cell, but The Undertaker steps on his fingers, causing Shawn to take a graceful fall into the Spanish announce table, a spot that would be replicated by Mankind during the King of the Ring 1998 Hell in a Cell matchup, but obviously was a big improvement off of this one. Of course, they would make their way back into the matchup, back into the ring, I should say, and The Undertaker introduces the chair, the very same instrument that had caused this rivalry to begin. But just when it seems he's going to get the upper hand on Shawn Michaels, the lights, they go out. We hear a sudden boom of pyro, and the lights come back up as we see Paul Bearer with a hulking figure behind him, and a now infamous line by Vince McMahon, whose last time on the commentary table was for this matchup. He would call, "It's gotta be Kane." And I think it's one of the greatest calls that he has in his career, as it's one of the greatest debuts in the WWE's history. You see, wind the clock back a little bit more. July of that year, 1997, Paul Bearer and The Undertaker began a small mini feud where Paul Bearer insinuated that The Undertaker's younger brother Kane was still alive. He claimed that The Undertaker had set the funeral home on fire, killing his parents and his little brother Kane. But you see, Kane wasn't dead. Paul Bearer, taking care of Kane, who at this point it was revealed was his son and the half brother to The Undertaker, he revealed that he was still alive. We just didn't know when he would arrive. And what better time than during the Hell in a Cell match would Kane make his debut? He would enter the Hell in a Cell by ripping the door off its hinges, and then would tombstone The Undertaker, not before struggling to look for the hard cam, before finally getting in position and tombstoning his older brother, opening the opportunity for Shawn Michaels to crawl over, place one arm over The Undertaker's lifeless body, and we get a 3 count. 1, 2, 3. Shawn Michaels wins and is the number 1 contender for Bret Hart's WWE Championship. Like I said, I think it's the greatest Hell in a Cell match of all time. It set forward the standard that was a Hell in a Cell matchup, and it's really hard to top what 2 of the greatest of all time, The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, had done that night. But you talk about the immediate aftermath that followed. That imagery of Shawn Michaels being carried out by Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Chyna sticks with me forever. But it's also important to remember that following this matchup, so many things were set in motion. We had the Undertaker versus Kane feud that I think is one of the greatest rivalries of all time, and had one of the greatest builds to a WrestleMania feud for the WrestleMania 14 feud. You also have to remember that Shawn Michaels became the number 1 contender, earning a title shot at Survivor Series in 1997. That's right, the Montreal Screwjob, which sets in motion so many dominoes, causing a domino effect that's still felt to this day. I don't need to explain the Montreal Screwjob to you. If you're a pro wrestling fan like me, you've probably heard this story time and time again. But looking back, Bad Blood is synonymous with the Hell in a Cell matchup. We have a Hell in a Cell matchup every single time the Bad Blood event is presented. And none have exceeded the level of success and entertainment that The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels did on that night. But who knows? CM Punk and Drew McIntyre are due to do battle for the very same stipulation at hand. I'm hoping it's going to be a great match. Don't know if it's going to main event, even though it should. But go ahead and comment down below your thoughts on the Hell in a Cell matchup between Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. Do you think it's the greatest of all time like me? And if you don't, go ahead and comment down below which match you think deserves that honor. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos such as this one. Of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. Thank you for coming in and hanging out with me discussing the very first Hell in a Cell matchup, and I'll see you next time.